Call the meeting to order. I'm Barry Malfers. I'm the Policy Committee Chairman and the Vice Chairman of the Commission on Disabilities and Special Needs. We'd like to thank everybody who has decided to join us here today to listen to the things that we are discussing regarding policy for the Commission on Disabilities and Special Needs. And I'm going to, the first item on the agenda is to call on Ms. Beck for the statement of announcement, please, ma'am.
A meeting notice announcing the date, time, and place of the July 13, 2021 Policy Committee meeting was distributed by July 8, 2021 to appropriate media and other groups or individuals who have requested notification. The announcement and agenda were posted at the Department of Disabilities and Special Needs Central Administrative Office and on the website. And the public has been notified that accommodations such as interpreters, mobility assistants, or other assistance will be provided to individuals with disabilities and special needs if requested in advance.
Thank you, ma'am. The next item on the agenda is the invocation, which I'll give very quickly. And I'll say this again, if anybody else would like to do that next month, they can just let me know who's going to be on anybody on the commission that would like to do that on our policy committee can certainly do it, but I'll do it this month again. Let us pray. God, thank you for allowing us to be here and for allowing us to, in some small way, affect the lives of those with disabilities. Allow us to be mindful of all of those with disabilities and not just a certain segment like those with autism or those with a head and spinal cord injury or anyone, but any specific one, but of all of us and of all of us actually, since I am one, and all of those who are disabled throughout our entire state. We would ask that we would do all that we could to make them more independent and more to reach their potential throughout their lives here on earth. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. The next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. And so I think everybody here knows that according to Robert's Rules of Order, page 48, that we use a unanimous consent regarding the policy committee. So if I don't hear an objection,
Barry, I've got Barry. This is David. I've got an item that we don't necessarily need to take it up now, but I don't know any reason why not. I've looked at the code section, and I think I think you've got a copy of the code section on what constitutes the calling of by the code, the South Carolina Code of Laws, of a special meeting, so that we don't have to use the terminology which is highly inflammatory of something called an emergency meeting. So we've been using that term emergency meeting for what really ought to be simply a special meeting. And I would like for just make sure that this gets on the agenda for next month, so that we can what we'll have to do, as best I can understand, is change how we rule what a meeting is. And that's to put it in sync with what the code is. And you have to give, I think it's a 48-hour notice. It's a paragraph in the code to designate a special meeting, which can be held with a 48-hour notice. Perhaps it's even 24-hour notice, be on the safe side, I think 48. And Chairman, I know you looked at it. You might want to comment on it. I don't want to necessarily throw it into something that, maybe nobody's really looked at when they got the agenda. But I brought it up at the last time we met that we needed to, and there are really reasons for doing this, but because when over the past year and a half or 2 years that I've been on the commission, we keep having emergency meetings, and with the exception, I think, of one, it wasn't an emergency meeting. It was just a special called meeting, which the code allows for. And for some reason, we've made it in the DDSN rules harder. If we just got in sync with the code, we could just have special meetings when and it would not be nearly as provocative and erroneously sounding like the sky is falling which I think is the rational thing to do. It just produces the use of that term so many times produces undue alarm, and it's the rules committee that ought to be taking this up. So if we could focus on that and try to have that on the next agenda, I'd appreciate it. If we're not, I'm going to move it. I'm going to move it to be put on the agenda at the next meeting if it doesn't show up, because this is something to be dealt with, and basically, one group of us just talking about it for 5 minutes goes to full committee. If there's an issue in the full commission meeting, we could hold it off or carry it over or whatever. But if it's not on the agenda, I'm going to move that it be put on the agenda at the next policy meeting, Mr. Chairman.
I have every intention of putting it on the next meeting, and I think that I even have wording for it. I think that a special meeting is more than 24 hours in advance, and an emergency meeting is less than 24 hours in advance, as long as it's posted according to the statute of the Freedom of Information Act. But we could put the word 48 hours in there, so I guess we'll discuss that at the next meeting. But special meetings will either be 24 or 48 hours before, and emergency meetings will be anything less than 24 hours. Well, I agree with you about the terminology needing to be say special. That's what the word.
I don't know how it didn't get on, since both of us, it sounds like, wanted it on, but whatever. I mean, if staff didn't want it, if there was too packed on the agenda, whatever, I'm just putting everybody on notice. I'm going to move that it be put on the agenda. If it's not on the agenda, on the written agenda, just so nobody will be surprised, I'm going to move at this time, a month from now, that it be placed on the agenda for consideration. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No problem. It will be placed on there at the next meeting. The next item on the agenda is after the adoption of the agenda, which I'm assuming that's the only objection you have in that regard, David?
Oh, yes, sir. I'm fine with the whole thing. That's fine.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the list of of policy directives and standards for the committee, for our committee. There's only a couple of small changes that I'd like to consider for that, which is, this is what every committee has to say what their procedures are for the meeting. And well, wait a minute, did I skip? Wait a minute, did I skip to there too fast?
New business, number 5.
No, I'm sorry, I'm supposed to be on number 2 and I'm on number 5. I skipped a page, sorry. The next item on the agenda is, where is my mind? The next item on the agenda is our directives for wait a minute.
I think you're searching for the fiscal year 22 list. The pages 1 through 3 of the larger packet includes a list for the fiscal year 22 projected documents that'll be reviewed. Is that what you're going to address?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get to. I'm sorry, I'm messing up here. I got my pages mixed up here. We're trying to get to the next item on the agenda. Relates to the standards that we're going to use for the committee and the policies that we're going to go through, and they're all down here. The documents that we are intending to go through, and that each of these documents will be posted for public comment, as they always are, and they can be commented on at any time, including now or at any time during the year that we're going through these policies, or any other policies for that matter, and that these are updated every 6 months. And that this is our next 6 months of policies that are in our package right now. And there's 25 of them, correct, Susan?
So on this list that is pages 1 through 3 in the PDF packet the committee received. It actually includes 45 documents, which is our yearly goal. And we know last year there were additions and subtractions and moving around to exceed that 45. But 25 of those documents were deferred from the prior fiscal year, and an additional 20 were added to equal 25. We took the directives and documents, other documents like standards that were just longest outstanding for review and compiled the list that way. And your document lists them by series, so you can kind of see categorically how many different documents by topic are projected to be covered.
This is our list, David. I've been through it. Do you have anything to add or subtract from this list, or any questions about the list? If you don't have any, I'm just going to move that we adopt this as the list for the next 6 months, technically for the next 12 months, but we'll be doing it on another 6-month basis. We'll be doing it again in January. Going back to it again in January. Okay, this is going to be our next 45 for this year. We'll call that as approved. The next item on the agenda is the committee procedures document that I was speaking of just now, that I skipped by accident. Every year we need to do the committee procedures for, we need to review the committee procedures. And I think everything is fine about our current committee procedures, except for one thing I wanted to add, which is that that we will start. We've already been keeping summaries of the meetings, but we're gonna approve those summaries at the next meeting. Similar to, it's not really minutes, but it's summaries of the meetings. It's basically what we've discussed at the meeting. We're gonna approve those at each committee meeting, just like the other committees do. It really is not as necessary, except that every other committee does it. So we're just conforming with what every other committee does to approve those summaries, which we've already been taking. So
Barry, Chairman, are we on tab 2, page 4?
We're on.
I'm looking at
Yes,
something under.
We're supposed to be on section. We're on.
It's tab 2, page 4 through 6 is the committee procedures. Attachment D.
Tab 2, page 4 through 6. I'm sorry. Yes.
So Commissioner Malthus, what I'm hearing is perhaps in the meeting procedures, you'd like an addition, maybe Roman numeral 6, which would go on the last page, that a meeting summary will be prepared by staff and will be presented at the next scheduled committee meeting for approval.
That's right. By the committee. That's right.
Okay, I've drafted that and we can have that up here. I do just have kind of a question for you just procedurally on this. So if the other committees are being asked to do their annual review of the committee procedures, my thought was once all of those have been reviewed, we then bring this back to the commission for all of the committee procedures to be approved at one time. Is that your preference?
It's fine with me. The only other thing that I'd like to that we might consider adding, now I'm not saying we have to add it, but and if you don't, if those on the committee or even you, Susan, object to it for some reason, we won't do it. But we do have a list of those policies that we make obsolete, and we might want to put that in here, that we don't put that down in here, that we have a list of policies that have been made obsolete.
Certainly, that's a great point. I can find a spot to add that and say that The committee retains a copy of all documents that have been voted on by the commission to be marked obsolete, and the signature of the chair and vice chair obtained after commission approval, something like that.
Sounds good to me. One last thing I wanted to say about this thing. I'm sorry, I keep adding stuff to it. But one last thing I wanted to say is that under section A, under review of and appeal of commission policies, David, I'm on page 5 of section 2. It says after the 10 days public review period. I think it should say that we may or may not respond. We don't have to respond. So it should say we may or may not respond. Right now it says we will respond to every, I think it says we will respond. We will consider and respond to each comment. We don't have to respond to each comment. We can say we may or may not respond. You're not required. I don't want anybody to be required to respond to a comment if we decide we don't want to.
Well, that's fine with me.
Okay. That was the only other thing I was going to say.
I have noted that. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the only other thing I would. Other than that, I think that the committee document is, the policy committee document is wonderful the way it's written. And if there is no objection, David, I'm going to move that this one be moved to the commission whenever the rest of the committees are approved, because none of this is an emergency. So there's no reason to bring it. I don't think any of this is an emergency, so there's no reason to bring it separately. I don't think. I think Susan, as usual, is exactly right about that. I hear no objection, so that's what we're going to do.
Barry, this is Gary Lamel, not to object, but just let you know that I'm now on. I'm sorry for the confusion. I thought where we left last time that I thought where we left it last time was that Stephanie had not appointed me to policy. I thought she'd only placed me on audit. So that's my misunderstanding as far as attending here. So I apologize about being late for the meeting.
Oh, that's all right. I did expect you here today, but that's fine. No problem. The next item on the agenda relates to our employment policy. And I would ask that there was a lot of comments, as most of us know, about the employment. You what? Sorry, did I skip something?
No, you're right.
Okay. I was just.
Chairman, we're on section 1, tab 2, number 2, outside employment. Is that right? Pages 7 through 13.
That's right. 7 through 13. That's right.
All right. Thank you.
Sorry. That's right. We're on on the public policy. And there was a lot of comments. I want to say this publicly. There was a lot of comments made on this policy. And I truly believe, I read all of those comments, and we could go through them and talk about them if anybody in here wants to. Technically, we are recommending through legal counsel and or the staff, however you want to put it, that we don't make any changes to this policy for legal reasons. But I think that most of these comments, if not all of them, could be alleviated by if people really understood the red letters in this policy that I'm going to ask that the DDSN response to all comments received. If we read that out loud, Susan,
Sure.
so that everybody will understand this is what our response to all those comments is. The red letters on my sheet.
Sure, I'd be glad to do that. So there are 3 pages of comments that were just for the sake of easy reading. We're kind of put into a Word document thanks to Colleen Honey's organizational prowess. And the response is at the top of your page 7 of this section. It says DDSN response, all comments have been received, considered, and appropriate changes have been made. And so there's further clarification offered that the driving force behind this directive is twofold. First, the vast majority of South Carolina state agencies have an outside employment directive or policy. In this sense, DDSN is simply trying to bring the agency into alignment with the standards set by other state agencies. Secondly, outside employment directives serve to provide a framework by which DDSN can allow outside employment for DDSN employees, while at the same time establishing a mechanism through which DDSN can ensure that the sought outside employment does not present a conflict of interest or otherwise hinder the mission and well-being of DDSN and its consumers. So those comments were all considered, but that's sort of the, kind of clarifying position of why the directive is needed. There is some text on page 10 as well as on page 12 and 13 that further kind of aid to clarify some of the positions of the directive, that the main purpose is really to avoid any sort of situations where employees create the appearance of impropriety or conflict of interest or interfere with the employee's ability to perform their DDSN job duties satisfactorily. And so I just draw your attention to those just clarifying additions, but for the majority of the pages, no major changes have been made.
Okay.
Well, Chairman, has everybody read had time to read the comments, the 13 comments on pages 7 through 9? I guess it's 7 through 9. I would ask the staff if these are accurate criticism, but they all make sense. I mean, if somebody, everybody to some degrees may be needing outside employment, if these are not automatically suspect conflicts, somebody needs a job for it. So number 7, at a grocery store, sales, restaurants. Another one says, hey, you can't wait 10 days. If somebody offers you a job, that's number 11. I thought all of these were very interesting and legitimate. So we don't want to hamstring the employees who are trying to find extra income. And if y'all could if you haven't had time to read them, take just a second to read those, because whatever we choose as the directive about outside employment, I think we have to take all that into consideration, or we're going to run into a real logjam at the full commission meeting when they start asking, but what about?
Mr. Chairman,
so
I agree with Commissioner. I'm sorry.
No, I was finished. Go ahead.
I agree with Commissioner Thomas. That is a concern for me, especially with the shortage of DSP providers. A lot of those folks have to have second jobs. I mean, they don't get enough hours with DDSN to be able to make a living. So they have to go get a second job as a nursing assistant or whatever. And many nursing assistants work 3 jobs. So I think that's something, and even nurses today, some of them work PRNs at hospitals on the weekends and that kind of thing. So we really have to look carefully at this. And I think we don't just need to look at agencies that are, just regular agencies within the state. I think we're going to have to look at agencies that have healthcare employees that are in the healthcare field.
Well, we do need to keep in mind that the biggest reason for this policy is to keep people from doing anything that's a conflict of interest. And that's what worries me. We don't want them to do anything that's a conflict of interest for our agency and to represent that in their second job that they do this for the agency and that could be perceived as a conflict of interest. That's the primary reason for this document. And this document is this document is very pro DDSN, but it should be because we are their primary employment.
Barry, I think, however this is David, however the document is worded, it should not prohibit anybody from accepting a job. If they want a job, they just have to report it to DDSN about what the job is, and then afterwards, DDSN can come in and say, "Hey, wait a minute, this is in direct conflict with what you're." I don't know what kind of job that would be, but I think whatever directive we have about outside employment needs to be very soft and very liberal, and only intervene if there's something egregious. But I can't imagine somebody wanting a second job to work, and it's somehow you normally think of conflicts, don't you, as something, I don't know, in the higher ranks of the executive where they're doing something with some other department of state government that somehow over. I just don't want us to become, what should the word be? Officious or autocratic in seeking such a directive. Well, I'm finished with that.
It could be that this needs to be put off for another month then, and we need to decide how we're going to deal with this, because right now, it is done in such a way that it is very pro DDSN. So maybe there needs to be some paragraph added that says that they can take a job, and then so that woman that was talking about the 10-day thing where we can't wait 10 days to get a job, maybe it does need to say that you can take the job and then we'll reevaluate it at that time and see if we have to take the job away from you, sort of thing. So maybe we do need to get Constance to look at this and look at it more, and we won't bring it to the commission until August.
I agree with David.
Commissioner Malford, to
that.
Go ahead, Constance.
If the purpose of the directive is not to be punitive, and there could very well be occasions where DSP's second employment is causing the quality of care that they're providing in their first employment. It may interfere. Maybe they are not showing up for work because of that second employment. Like, we didn't draft it. If we make it any softer, we might as well not have the outside employment directive. And it's not necessarily drafted to be pro DDSN.
Well,
it's just,
I don't think that's a bad thing, but go ahead.
We drafted it in such a way that we didn't want to be a hindrance to outside employment, because I recognize that the majority of our DSPs have second employment as a way of survival. But to say that it's not punitive, and the only thing we could do is maybe shorten the time frame as far as the turnaround time to maybe 5 days. But if we make it any softer, we might as well not have it. That's my opinion, because we drafted it with all those concerns in mind. And the majority of the concerns were in regards to the DSPs and having second employment. I think out of the 13, 8 of them were regarding the turnaround time for their second employment.
Well, I mean, we do need the document, because it says a lot of things about if you have any troubles with your current job and it affects your job that you currently have with us, then we can ask you not to have this second job anymore and things of that nature. So it's it is a good document to have, even if we do change something about it, about the 10-day time, the request for procedure or whatever, and all that. I mean, I personally think there are some things that we could change and still keep the document. I personally was not upset about the document at all. Although it could have been added, could have been added to another document that we already had, because I think some of this stuff was, in another procedure that we already have, but it was probably better to have it in a separate document. So I was happy with it overall. But go ahead, David.
I'm worried too a little bit about when I was kind of young. I had multiple jobs, and I actually had some supervisors that if they had the opportunity and knew, and I had to report, oh, I'm applying for a second job, just to be difficult, I think some of these people might have said, no, you're not if you want to keep this one. And because I think that's a conflict, even though it might have been arbitrary, it would have blocked me from getting the job. You don't want to go through an appeals process. That doesn't make sense either. It's just the potential for heavy-handedness and somebody being obtuse with an employee. I wish you all would just, and I guess everybody has already, just give some consideration to these 13 folks that commented about the problems this would create conceivably. And maybe let's just sit on this one for a little while and really think through it.
Yeah, Barry, if I may, this is Gary.
Go ahead.
I agree with David on this. And Constance, I hear what you're saying, that it's not intended to be punitive, but I think if you look at the immediate sort of gut reaction we get from the comments is that there's a clear perception that it could be used in a punitive fashion pretty easily by somebody who wanted to. And I think a lot of it just comes that it's sort of you have to get approval first before you can take the job at the grocery store or any of that sort of that absolute prohibition, regardless of whether there's any conflict or not, creates that situation where a person who may not be the most sophisticated in the world is attempting to navigate this, and because they are given a window of you're hired, but I need you to start tomorrow, that they're going to lose that opportunity because there's no way to do that and comply with this particular policy. So I agree with David's idea that I think there's a lot of good language in there, but I'm not 100% comfortable with it given where the comments are coming in are as well.
Well, could we put this off for one more month and then we'll change that where it says you can, and make it to where you can accept the job, and then if we don't approve it, we can tell you have to get rid of that job?
Yeah, I'm not opposed to anything that makes it easier for someone to get the second outside employment that they're seeking. So we need to change it to say that you can accept the position and then seek approval. I think that's perfectly fine.
So that's in request procedures and B on your page 12 committee, page 3 of the directive. We could work on that language a little bit. You also have some discussion about the turnaround time for approval above in A, the 10 calendar days. Constance said, maybe we could consider shortening it. I'm not sure what's reasonable considering I don't know how much volume you'd get if maybe that's something to deliberate on and come back.
And again, if we're letting them take the job, it may not matter. But I also think, Susan, the very first sentence where it just says may not engage in outside employment except as sanctioned, that's kind of.
Where's that one? I'm
sorry. The very first sentence after purpose. I mean, it's we just need to address that I mean, they can technically engage in it before they've gone through the full procedure, but if we let them engage in it, then the 10 days becomes a lot less significant, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
sure, that's reasonable. And maybe they just have to notify you within 30 days of acceptance or something. We can discuss that. I've made notes on all 3 of those issues. Are there additional issues maybe I didn't catch?
Okay.
Sound good to you? Okay. Committee, does that sound good? We'll come back to you with maybe some adjustments to that first section under policy on page 2 about the sanctioning. Commissioner Lamel, thank you. And then the length of time for approval, like you said, balancing it all out. In A on request for procedures, page 3, and then B, this section talking about perhaps they could accept and then within a period of time seek approval and handle it that way. Okay.
Okay, I have no problem with that. We'll look at it again next month, and we won't take this to the commission until after next month.
Okay, so on the notes on that, I believe it'll be on the published agenda that's already gone. Is that agenda gone out?
I don't think so.
Okay, we can just touch on that as an announcement rather than an approval then, if that's okay.
Yeah, we'll just say that, yeah, that they were announcing that we'll be doing it next month.
Yep, and put it on the August agenda, along with that earlier note for the August agenda on the bylaws. Got it.
Right. Okay, the next item on the agenda is under section 2. There is no referral to any other, to the finance committee right now. And there's also under section 3, there's no referral this time to the staff for a revision of any policy. And for some reason it'll be about 15 minutes. Tomorrow. Can you do it tomorrow? Okay. For some sorry. I'll be back. All right. For some reason, I'm sorry, somebody was in here. For some reason, I don't have number 5 and number 4 on section 4 and 5 because I
okay,
section,
the old business section.
Well, I have the old business section, but that's labeled as 6. Is there a 4 and 5 or not? Is the next item? I'm sorry. Is the next item? Next item on the agenda is the records retaliation.
It's old, but it's old. It's old. I think it's number 6. Old business is the next thing up because
yes.
we're following. We've already covered 1 through 5. Then we covered everything under 5. Now we're under 6. Old business, I believe, Barry.
I'm sorry. My sheet's numbered wrong. It's my fault.
Yeah, we have a very complex outlining system for this agenda because it's built with sections. We can work on the visual display of that in the future. I apologize. We are on old business, and the Commissioner Malphris, the item that might not appear in your notes was just an update on a directive. Would you like me to give that update?
Yeah, I see it now. The update on the objective. I just didn't have a 4 and 5. Yeah, go ahead, Susan, with the next item. I'm sorry for those listening. I'm normally more organized than this, but
it's a very busy week.
Number 6 is, yeah, we have, and we got a busy week coming with tomorrow and the next day. So, but anyways, busy rest of this week. So, under old business is our next item, and I'm just going to ask Susan to talk about the directive that was directed to staff.
Sure. So 36801DD is a records retention of individual service records, which was referred to staff. It was edited, put out for external review. A few comments were received, which were good kind of clarifying comments. So staff has that prepared and should appear in the commission material so that it can be presented for approval at the commission meeting on Thursday. That's my update on that.
Okay, does everybody understand it was just grammatical is the only comments we had?
I heard. Yep.
I've mentioned before that Susan's very good with grammatical things, so we probably don't need grammatical comments. But and to mention about comments, we do have a 10-day comment period. But I like to say this because I know that I've said this about a year ago, but I know that a lot of people are on here new and things of that nature. And so, just for the record, we do like to have public comment and we appreciate public comment, but we're not required to have public comment. There's no legal obligation that this agency has to have public comment in any way. So just everybody just needs to keep that in mind. There's nothing in Freedom of Information Act or anything that we have to have public comment. So, but anyway, the next item on the agenda is really, is there anything else that, is there anything else that needs to come before this committee that I have skipped by accident or anything like that, since I didn't have a very good day here? If there's nothing, I'm going to make a motion. I mean, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, we have a move, and I'll second. So we are, and if we have a second on an adjournment, we are adjourned whether we want to be or not. So we're adjourned.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you again. My apologies for being late. I apologize for the misunderstanding. First
right,
time on policy in my tenure with the DSN, so I wasn't expecting.
Really?
Yeah,
Well, welcome to the policy committee.
I was always finance and audit before. Well, I guess not first time, because I guess I did sit on some as chair, but yeah, first time as an actual member. So thank you for having me.
No problem at all. And I thank the commission for allowing me to be a part of a chairman of the policy committee again. I'm not sure if I said that at the last meeting, but I did want to say that again here. I appreciate the opportunity to be chairman of this committee, and actually like this committee more than any other one. So I'm thankful to be the chairman of it. So that's that. We are adjourned.
Thank you all. See you on August 10th. Well, I'll see you later this week, but our next policy committee meeting is scheduled for August 10th, unless that schedule changes, right, Commissioner Malthus?
That's correct. I'm sorry, I did forget to say that. We're adjourned, but except to say that the next policy committee meeting is August 10th. That's right. So I'm heading off.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am.